Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and allowing me to continue to be your daily advocate. If you're new here or you're not subscribed for any reason, please do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all of you who have been watching and following me for so long. It truly means a lot, and I'm glad that I can be this person.
We got ourselves some more juicy news on the Ripple v. SEC lawsuit. So guys, if you enjoy these daily crypto updates, make sure you press that like button and let's get it going. So, breaking news. Ripple files a letter motion to compel the SEC to turn over notes regarding a 2018 meeting between Brad Garlinghouse and former Commissioner Roisman. The SEC, however, refuses, claiming they are privileged. So, at the end of the day, guys, what exactly this is, to explain it in the easiest fashion, is Ripple is saying, hey, SEC, we want some of your documents, specifically regarding a meeting that you had in 2018 between Brad Garlinghouse, at least to compel the SEC to turn over notes regarding 2018 meeting between Brad Garlinghouse and Commissioner Roisman of the SEC, right? The SEC refuses, however, to give that. All right, so let's actually see from a different side what crypto law has written about the matter. So they stated, just added to our document library, motion by Brad Garlinghouse specifically. Again, guys, remember the lawsuit has three parts: Ripple versus SEC, Brad Garlinghouse versus SEC, and Chris Larsen versus SEC. So this is from Chris Larsen's legal team, to compel the SEC to produce notes by outgoing staffer Matthew Estabrook from 2018, basically between Commissioner Roisman and Garlinghouse, where XRP was discussed, plus exhibits. Let's check the thread out completely here to get all the juicy details about this. Again, guys, make sure you press that like button if you enjoy these daily crypto updates. It's not going in. There we go. All right. The motion and exhibits detail intends back and forth over how, in January, the SEC claimed it stumbled across these notes as Estabrook was cleaning out his desk as he left the agency. Another privilege log was sent, but surprise, the SEC claims the notes are privileged. And what that part means, guys, the privileged, is the SEC is claiming that this work that they have here is not really available for the lawsuit because, again, basically privilege means it should stay and be hidden. Why? Well, because of some specific use of the law that they can sometimes use, and that's again what the dispute is all about. The SEC claims that Ripple has no rights to see these documents. It's the same thing as, for example, if you talk, it's a little bit different, but we'll get to it in just a second. If you talk to your lawyer, well, I mean, they can't use every single thing that you say to your lawyer in court, basically, because it should be a little privileged environment in some sense, right? And the same thing if you talk to your psychiatrist, a lot of things can't be used for other things, purely because you have some sort of basis of trust or of security. And again, that's usually what the privilege argument is for as well. These people, in their government role, should be free to say and write down whatever they want. If they're writing down thoughts on, I definitely want to break all, basically I want to get all these rules out of the way and I want to get new rules in, they should be allowed to think so. And if every single thought process or note that went into one of these commissioners' minds was available to the public, then it would be very hard to become president or very hard to actually work for such a public commission, basically, because, well, anytime you write something wrong down or something controversial, you're going to maybe have a very hard time in the rest of your life, even at that point. Because again, there's a very big difference between what a person might think and what eventually the result of that thought is going to be. Like, you could do nothing with it, you could do a lot with it. But the same thing goes for any internal parts in that sense. I understand why a lot of these things can be and should be private. In this case, though, however, within the SEC, right, if we're talking about notes, for example, about a conversation between two of these people, I can from some perspective understand that they wanted to keep to be privileged. Partially because I think there might be some juicy details in there, but also, if we're discussing whether or not it was reasonable for Ripple to assume that there was not enough knowledge to make any conclusion about XRP, and the SEC is trying to argue, well, there was, then I think it's also reasonable to at least get parts of any single note from whatever these speeches were all about. Because I'm going to say, and give it out to the open here, that whether or not an SEC member thought that XRP was security at any point is relevant, regardless of whether or not you think, oh, no, it should be privileged, it should be some SEC member what they can think internally. No, I think it's definitely very relevant if they are trying to claim that everybody should have known. Because if it turns out that even SEC members didn't know, which again has already been kind of out there, but more officially like this, then the argument for Ripple's fair notice defense just gets more and more strong. And once more, guys, Ripple can win solely on the fair notice defense, which again is kind of what I think the best course of action is going to be. However, most lawyers disagree with that. And again, guys, these videos are not financial or legal advice. I'm just shouting out some things that I'm finding on the internet, and I'm just doing a lot of research, but I'm not a perfect lawyer. So, the motion and exhibits detail intends back and forth over how in January, the SEC claimed it stumbled across these notes as Esteban was cleaning out his desk as he left the agency. Another privilege log was sent, but surprised the SEC claimed notes were privileged. The motion demands the notes be handed over, detailing how ridiculous the privilege claim is by noting that Garlinghouse said in a deposition, which is again just basically a questioning excerpt released here. He remembered Roisman was sympathetic to Ripple over XRP in the meeting, and the SEC previously released meeting notes, released also, from a 2018 meeting between Ripple and Jay Clayton, where XRP was discussed and didn't claim privilege over that document. Clearly, the motion says privilege claims are only made over anything helpful to the defendant's case. Exhibits include a Brad Garlinghouse email after 2018 Roisman meeting, plus excerpt from Garlinghouse's deposition, recalling Roisman's sympathetic views of SEC's confusion over XRP. Again, to reiterate, Roisman was at that point confused is what Brad Garlinghouse recalled from that meeting. The SEC is refusing to release its own notes from that meeting. Wonder why? Because at the end of the day, guys, rethink it like I'm thinking of. If it turns out that Brad Garlinghouse was lying or himself was confused, I don't see any reason why the SEC would not want these notes public. Because if it turns out that Ripple or Brad Garlinghouse wants these notes, and all it says is how Roisman was really thinking and telling Brad Garlinghouse how it was security, and that the rules are all clear, most likely the SEC was going to be the first to put it up and say, Judge, look at these notes. You know, like completely out of breath for how quickly they want to get it in. But the fact that they're trying to hide these notes makes me also think there's something inside. And I guess that's also like a little bias that we as humans have, huh? The more somebody's trying to hide something, the more guilty they feel, the more guilty we think about them, which is not necessarily the case. However, in this sense, it's also quite logical, because in this case, it's either it's completely irrelevant, which they're not claiming, either it's something which you want to hide for your own benefit, or you want to expose as quickly as possible. That's basically the three options that we have, and it's not completely irrelevant, we all know that. So the only two options which we have is they're either keeping it back because they know it's going to hurt them, or they should have exposed it as quickly as possible, which is not what they've done. So, in my own opinion, there's actually no other reason. I guess one small little caveat we could say is they just don't want to do any giving over of information. But again, it always comes and boils down to the fact that it would or should hurt them, because once more, if it added as an additional, they would have most likely included it quite quickly, as we've seen them do a couple of times in the recent past here. So, Exhibit B is the letter of notice from SEC when they just happened to find the notes they insist they looked for previously and hadn't found, but just stumbled over. Oh, and that they are withholding them. So we don't need to read too far into this, but there's two things to add. It's pretty funny how Empower.us, or EmpowerUS, was also questioning the SEC about a lot of documents. They were going for a couple of Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA for short, and the SEC couldn't find anything responsive. Responsive meaning they typed in a couple of search terms, for example, but nothing was showing up as to their request. And then later on, they found 1,000 documents. Here it's kind of funny how that's happening again, right? It's like, well, we looked first, we didn't see it, but now all of a sudden, no, we did kind of find it, but we don't want to hand it over. Which to me, once more, I'm biased, but okay, looks like, well, we already had it for a long time, but we kind of didn't want to give it to you, so we acted as if it wasn't there. And now that we did find it, because we have no more way out to, kind of deny this, we don't want to give it to you anyway. Alright guys, and the next thing I wanted to show you guys is basically some conclusions that people within the XRP community have drawn. Then SEC Commissioner Roisman told Brad Garlinghouse that XRP was not a security, according to Brad Garlinghouse's deposition. He was not the chair, but was sitting commissioner. Also deeply troubling. So let's quickly take a little bit of a look at this. Wrath of Kahneman has been sharing a couple of different pieces. I mean, there's a couple other tweets which he had, which we're definitely going to be taking a look at in just a second, but check it out. So the question, in these meetings with the commissioners, this is again, the SEC versus Brad Garlinghouse. So Q being SEC, A being Brad. In these meetings with commissioners, did any of the commissioners tell you that they did not believe XRP is a security? Garlinghouse says yes. Question. Garlinghouse says, I recall Commissioner Roisman very specifically saying, I'm sorry, you've even had to come here. I think that the confusion about that was actually a quote. He said, I'm sorry you've even had to come here, end quote. I think that the confusion about the status of XRP he viewed as not healthy for the market. I don't recall less about the meeting with Commissioner Kurtz. Very, very interesting. I've been thinking about this for a long time. So, Wrath of Kahneman also shared this. Wow. Jay Clayton asked Brad Garlinghouse to back up from the issue of XRP's undecided security status. This is from their own notes even. Let's take a little bit of a look at this one. Finance William Himman, incidentally, that memorandum recounts a conversation between Clayton and Garlinghouse similar to the conversation Mr. Garlinghouse recalls having with Roisman, in which he discussed the fact that Ripple was in purgatory due to uncertainty as to whether XRP, the crypto with which Ripple is associated, is or is not a security. And Clayton asked him to back up from that issue and encourage the Ripple executives to continue its ongoing discussions with the staff of the Division of Corporation Finance. Once again, is William Hinman, no? Like the Esterbrook notes, the memorandum has written by commission staff and memorialized a meeting between the commissioner and Garlinghouse, and yet the SEC produced it and never asserted it was privileged. The only difference seems to be that the SEC believes the memorandum to file of the Chair Clayton meeting is self-serving, while the notes to the Commissioner Roisman meeting may be helpful to Mr. Garlinghouse, but that it is no basis for withholding from Mr. Garlinghouse evidence that is critical to defending himself against the SEC's wildly unjust accusation. Guys, I've shared it multiple times by now, but the more I read into this, the more I honestly believe that this is all a show. I think this is critical proof, however, that Ripple did not get the proper fair notice. I think this is like two slam dunks. These two little meetings here specifically are slam dunks. And I'm kind of wondering why we didn't hear too much about them before, because of course Brad Garlinghouse did have this information before, right? It makes you think, what else does Ripple or Brad Garlinghouse or whatever know that makes them so certain? You gotta remember, guys, this is very important, listen carefully. Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple, Chris Larson, all those guys, they know this stuff. They know the fact that multiple different pieces within the SEC has told them it is uncertain. Hence this defense. But remember how certain Brad Garlinghouse has looked time and time again about the fact that they will win. I mean, of course in a lawsuit, you're never gonna look uncertain to say you're not gonna win, kinda, right? I understand that, so you're always biased towards yourself, but I honestly think they would have gone or tried for a settlement a lot quicker, as I think the SEC would be quick to grab it, knowing all this information. And they're sitting around the table because they've done that, let's say, 3 dozen times. Just they've been sitting on this information for so long, it just makes you wonder how much else they know that has shown basically the SEC being uncertain about things. You might kind of come back and say, well, but a couple of documents most likely show the exact opposite, that SEC has warned them. Yes, I believe so. Let's be honest with each other and say, most likely Ripple did know a little bit that they were on the edge. Just most likely. I mean, they're not stupid. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They've been for a little while. They got a lot of good advisors. Most likely, they kind of knew in the back end that there was most likely going to be some sort of dispute. It's not a complete surprise, because again, it's been going on for years. But there's a very big distinction between thinking something potentially might be so and understanding that something will be ruled that way. Because once more, if you look at the books from 2019, Ripple did sign with Tetragon that if it turns out that XP was security, they would buy back the shares. You're not going to sign something like that if you actually think it's going to happen. That's freaking stupid, if you ask me. And so forth and so on. I just think they had it in the back of their heads that it could happen, but that if the issue ever came up, it most likely wouldn't be them first, and they most likely had a good ground to stand on. So I think they're more so surprised by the fact that the SEC is really trying to push it through and make such ridiculous claims of all the XP being securities and whatnot, instead of some specific sales at the start and some smaller, like little accusations. So they went full force. And again, an additional bonus to that is that they also sued the founders, or I guess Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, founder and CEO, which is another little added claim to it. but then not fraud, and also not really put the preliminary injunction in, which again is stopping Ripple from selling it now, which again did not happen, so Ripple's still selling it. A lot of things don't make sense, a lot of things won't make sense. At the end of the day, guys, I think we've got two big bangers right here that are critical. But at the end of the day, I don't think the price is going to move because, well, why would it, right? We're not really any closer towards a result. They known this all along. We're just starting to get to know it now, and it's starting to get based upon by facts and notes.
So enjoy your day, everybody. I'm always here for you. Leave any comments or questions below, and be sure to subscribe. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Enjoy your day, and I always have your back. So thanks so much, everybody.